Fuse with Ken, an amazing experience. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of Fuse. You know, it's my commitment to go and find experts, thought leaders, and thinkers that help you in your journey to make better decisions, to change habits, and to transform your mind. Now, if you're struggling with things you can't control, if you're someone struggling with stress, anxiety, frustration, and depression, this episode is for you. So today's guest is a psychology lecturer, clinical entrepreneur, neurodiversity advocate, and aspiring academic. I'm speaking about Seretha Luther. Seretha is the founder of a social enterprise called Nurai to help educate parents, caregivers, and educators in Seychelles Island on how to tap into the growth potential of children with autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Seretha has huge desire and passion to learn and teach about the human's brain. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Seretha Luther. Hi Seretha, how you doing?
Thank you. That was a very nice intro.
Yeah, welcome to Fuse once again. So how's it been?
It's been good. It's been good. Been busy.
So how does it feel to be here?
It feels great. It feels good. Yeah.
Okay.
Have this conversation.
Amazing. So every time on Fuse, I like to actually start with, getting to know the person. So just tell us about your childhood growing up.
So I grew up in the Seychelles Islands, and if people don't know where that is, it's on the east coast of Africa, in the Indian Ocean. Small island states, small island people. I like to call it the Caribbeans of Africa. Maybe you might see the irony in that. And for me, when I was growing up, I loved it. I loved growing up in the Seychelles. It's paradise. It's beautiful. There's the beach, there's the mountains, there's nature. Yeah, but I was always very curious, and I was always very academically minded.
Okay.
So I didn't stay in the Seychelles for very long after I turned 16. Like, I was always traveling back and forth, and I kind of wanted to see the world. So grew up in the Seychelles, loved it, but then wanted to leave and see the world.
Amazing. So today we're looking at, stress, mental health, and of course, how people can navigate depression and, of course, all of that has to do with our well-being as a human being. So let's dive into it. And I want to start my first question, Seretha. When did your story start? I mean, your story about, mental health and getting to know about the human brain.
Well, initially I wanted to be a lawyer, and that's what I was starting to study to do. Yes, I wanted to be a lawyer.
So what changed?
Well, I was always very curious, and I always found like myself asking, why do people do the things they do? Why do people act the way they do, right? So that was what really drove my curiosity to think about it wasn't really about mental health, but behavior. And then I found out that, well, what drives our behavior is our brain. And then I got really interested in it, took my first psychology class, and then the rest is history.
Okay, so walk us through the journey of, your education and becoming a psychology lecturer. I want to know about that.
Okay, so I did my bachelor's degree at Middlesex University in the UK, and then I did my master's degree in Wales, in the UK as well. I did my master's in neuropsychology and neuroimaging, and then now I'm finishing up my PhD. I'm doing my PhD. So it's been quite a journey, and it's been a long journey. Academia is very long, and for a bit I took some breaks in between. I worked as a therapist. I opened up the social enterprise that you mentioned, Nurai, for 2 years, and then I'm still doing that part-time as I'm working as a lecturer as well. So yeah.
Amazing. So let's look at something which I know you love. You love to learn and teach about it. It's the brain. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I want to know, tell us more about the brain.
Well, the brain is interesting. It's complex, and we don't really know much about it yet.
Tell us about it. That's the
interesting part. So your brain controls everything that you are, that you do, that you think, that you feel. It is literally the command center of you, of your body, and everything from your movements through your thoughts to your emotions to your reactions to basically everything that you do, even eating, survival, breathing, everything is regulated by the brain. No, I think a lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And talking about, the brain, I had the chat with a mental, health expert, and he said, Ken, the brain is like a phone, a battery. It needs, when used, it needs to be charged.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I think with everything, there needs to be balance, and our brains need balance. Like our bodies need food, and our bodies need nutrition. Our brain needs something called sleep, and
Okay.
that's what our brain needs to
Okay.
recharge. And also, it needs health. And for health, it needs certain environments and certain
Okay.
things that you do to keep it healthy.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
what are those habits that can help the brain stay healthy?
Well, I mentioned one, which is sleep,
Sleep.
which we
Okay.
often, neglect that one.
You actually think people neglect sleep?
I think a lot of people don't see the importance of sleep.
Why do you think
right?
so?
So I remember talking to someone, they were like, sleep is for the dead. I'm like, no, sleep is for your brain.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people neglect the effect of how actually sleep is really recharging your brain. It's not just something you do because you're tired. It's your brain saying, I need to recharge. I need to shut down for a little bit and recharge. And I need to make new memories. I need to rewire your thoughts. I need to make new things, new connections. So sleep is actually very, very important in the brain. And the second thing that I wanted to mention when it comes to keeping your brain healthy is the environment. Are you in a super stressful environment? Are you doing something that maybe might not be healthy for you? Are you constantly ruminating? Ruminating is the word we use in psychology, which is basically a word that refers to, are you constantly thinking of negative thoughts? Are you constantly going through cycles of negativity and cycles of toxic thoughts even sometimes? Are you in an environment that's causing you to feel depressed? Are you feeling down most of the time? And staying in those cycles, because it works as a cycle, it actually hurts your brain. And other things like drugs and alcohol as well hurts your brain, but I'm not gonna talk on that because it's legal.
I'm actually going to get to the drugs and
Yeah.
alcohol. It's actually going to be like a topic we'll look at more on the show today,
Yeah.
because I know it plays a very vital role in our mental health. A lot of people take a lot of alcohol and they get stressed and all of that. But let's look at something. Because I like the expression sleep. We try to play it down, or actually bring it down, but it's very important. So tell us, when you talk about sleep, people say, I need to work. People say, I need to, make money. I need to be able to achieve my goals in life. I need to chase it. I don't need to sleep too much. I need to grind.
Yeah.
I need to hustle. I need to, and people neglect the importance of sleep. So as a professional, what do you think is like the recommended hours of sleep for a human being?
Well, it depends. Actually, research is showing that for women and men, it's different. Women need more sleep than men. But in terms of generally, it's 7 to 8 hours of sleep for humans, for adults.
Do you actually sleep 7 to 8 hours?
Unfortunately, not always, but I try.
Okay.
It is a discipline. I've realized that as an adult, it is a discipline because we have busy lives, and we, like I said, we often neglect the really the benefit of sleep, and sometimes we tend to not really think of it that important. So that's why we compromise. We're like, I can work 2 more hours and not need to sleep. So for a fully grown adult, it's 7 to 8 hours. And for women, there's research that's showing that it's even more, like even 9 to 10 hours of sleep, because of our differences in our genetics, in our hormones, in the way we process information, in the way our brains work. So women might need more sleep than men. That's more recent research that showed that.
Okay, so to that person thinking like, I have to make a lot of money, I have to make an impact, I have to reach my goals, and it's not sleeping, what would you say?
You might not be able to do that without enough sleep, because your brain will not be functioning 100%. Your brain will be, it's like hurting your brain. It's like if you cut yourself and you don't give yourself time to heal, then you won't heal. And it's the same thing. Sleep is like healing for your brain as well. It's so important. So no, I wouldn't think that. I think you might burn the midnight oil and then burn out. That's basically what might end up happening.
Burnout. And that's one of the things we'll talk about today on the show, later on the show. Let's look at stress. Okay, because we know most persons don't even get enough sleep because of stress.
Because of
now,
stress.
it is seen that the workplace is the number one cause of stress in the world. What's your reaction to this?
It's sad and it's true. I believe the way we've structured work has been unhealthy for the human brain in a lot of ways. However, it's also the same reason why work is also necessary for us. So stress, there is a stress, there's normal stress and then excessive stress. There is such a thing as normal stress.
Okay.
It's okay to be stressed to a certain extent.
Oh, is it okay to be stressed?
Yes, it's okay to be stressed to a certain extent. There's something we call normal stress. And that's just day-to-day stress. That's work stress. That's, I need to submit this exam, this assignment. I need to, as a student, I need to submit this exam. In a workplace, I need to submit this report that my boss gave me, or I need to attend this meeting at this time, and I need to wrap up what I'm doing.
Okay.
That is normal stress. And then there's excessive stress. Excessive stress is stress that is above the normal range, the one that you cannot really deal with or accommodate with. That's stress that's like, oh, I need to pay my bills, I need to do this, I need to do this because I need to do this, and then you find yourself not able to function. So excessive stress is a type of stress that leads to a bodily reaction. So you will see that people, when they have excessive stress, they have extreme reactions sometimes, and they might not even notice the reaction. Like, for example, your digestive system shuts down. You don't want to eat.
Okay.
You don't feel hungry, or you eat too much at some point, or you feel like you can't sleep at night. You're just too stressed so you can't sleep. That's a sign of excessive stress. So workplace stress can get to excessive stress if the person is maybe pushing themselves beyond the limits that they're normally can push themselves. We all have our limits. That's something that we need to know as well. What is your limit? But workplace stress can be normal and excessive. It depends.
Okay, now let's still talk about the workplace stress, because according to reports, that's like the primary cause of stress. People say, when you speak to people that work, of course, employees and people, they tell you that my workplace is toxic. My workplace, there's a lot of pressure. Okay, my boss is on my head. Okay, my subordinates are not performing. I'm the CEO. There's a lot of pressure on me to, be able to run my business and all of that. And the environment itself is toxic, so that's why they are stressed. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I won't tell people to quit their jobs because you need your job.
Okay.
But I would say we all have our tolerance level. We all have our natural internal tolerance level. And that's why I think therapy is so important, because it does help you to explore those things and explore, like, where is my limit? Like, am I the right person to do this as well, right? And also sometimes when you're doing something you're not passionate about, you might find it stressful because
Really?
It's not something you like, right? So I think when people do things they like, they report having less stress because they're enjoying the process of doing it. They're enjoying that. They're enjoying the work. Like, if you're someone who likes to do, like, for example, reports, right? You enjoy seeing the numbers. You like it. It gives you joy. They might not experience as much stress as someone who's like, I don't actually like doing this, and this is stressful for me. So sometimes stress can be a sign of you're not doing something you love or like or you're passionate about. And sometimes stress can be because your tolerance to that certain environment might be lower. So you need to really, self-awareness is what's really important, I think, in this context. You need to be really self-aware about what it is that you can and cannot tolerate in terms of your own stress measure, because we all have our own, right? Mine may be different from yours.
So how do you know your stress limit?
Well, it's when you get to the point where you feel like it's too much. That's when you know,
How do you know it's too much? That's the big question.
We all have to get to that point. We all have to get to the point where we know, oh, wow, okay, so I think this is too much for me. So I need to lower whatever it is that I'm doing to a level. So I think, again, like I said, self-awareness, just thinking about, when did I feel not stressed in this job? When did I do this job and I didn't feel like this, right? And I think it takes some reflection to think about, oh, when I was doing that, I really enjoyed that and I didn't feel stressed. So maybe I should ask my boss, can I do more of this? Can I delegate this? As well, sometimes people want to put everything on themselves as well. and they don't value delegation and just asking for help. That's
Okay.
another thing that
All right.
people often lead to stress is people don't ask for help as well. But I do acknowledge that there are some environments that are actually toxic. And again, I'm not going to tell you to quit your job,
Okay.
but you have to think about how long can I tolerate this?
Okay. So since you can't tell people to quit their job because they have to pay the bills, they have a
Yeah.
life to live, what do you think organizations and companies must do to, curtail the, stress in the workplace?
One great thing that I see a lot of organizations doing is they have an employee assistance program, which actually helps to address every other areas of the person's life. So
Okay.
they give them mental health coaching, they give them nutrition coaching, they give them even legal advice, because it might be other things that happens in their life that is causing them stress in their current life.
Okay.
Right? So maybe they're having a legal issue, maybe they're having budgeting issues, and then bringing that to work, and then that stress at work compounds on top of it, right? So that's a great thing that I see some organizations doing, is having a program that really looks at well-being of their employees and implementing well-being practices within the workplace. Maybe having one day when the people can work from home, right? And that's something that's practiced nowadays a lot more. And that's
okay.
actually shown to reduce the amount of stress. Giving people maybe breaks in between, more breaks in between, and also having retreats or maybe some nice times, organizing events for them, just to de-stress, just to give them some appreciation. And studies have shown that when people feel more appreciated at work, they feel less stressed. So
Okay.
that's another thing as well. So showing appreciation to your employees, giving awards or, giving some recognition as well. So there's different things that companies can do actually to manage the stress levels.
Amazing. So as we still look at, stress and mental health as a subject, I had a conversation with an expert, of course, and he told me, Ken, there's bad stress and there's good stress. Okay. And today you talked about excessive stress, and there's normal stress, according to your, opinion today. So I want to really say something about, the bad and the good stress. Some people say that good stress is actually healthy. It helps you, grow. It helps you, create resilience and all of that. What's your reaction to that?
So that's what I was talking about. Normal stress, that is good stress. So we don't say good stress because not everybody might see it as good, right?
Yeah.
So we use the word normal stress because it's more normal to say this is actually normal. Normal stress.
So stress is good, actually.
Yeah, stress is good, but excessive stress is bad.
All right.
So that's what we need to know first. And stress is good in the sense that the one of the reasons why people have achieved so much is because they've put themselves in situations of discomfort. And that is stressful, right? So actually to reach that level of that you want to reach, especially if you're thinking about reaching some high achievement, even, going through school, going through university, all that is stressful. It is stress. Stress simply means anything that takes you away from a baseline state. So it's stressful for you to get out of bed, by the way.
How stressful is that?
That is stress because it's
Okay.
causing a force. Stress just means causing a force,
All right.
and you're not in a state of just calm, right?
All right.
So there's a difference in your body, in your brain, your nervous system. There's something we call fight or flight or rest and digest. So fight or flight is just your body's mechanism to really get you going and acting and activating, right? And then we have deactivating mechanisms, deactivating systems that helps you to deactivate. So the deactivate, rest, and digest, that is the opposite of stress. So stress is just the opposite of rest and digest in a way. So there is good stress because there's the stress of I need to wake up at a certain time every day and get ready by this time to get to where I'm going. That is a form of stress. I need to finish this and then go and do this. That is a form of stress. I need to do a very something that makes me a little bit nervous, but it's actually good. It's going to end up being good for me. That is a form of stress. But those are examples of good stress. So, and then bad stress is the other side where you can't function. So When we actually classify bad stress, it's when we get to the point of dysfunction.
Dysfunction.
Yeah.
You said something about discomfort, that when some persons are actually discomforted, then they get stressed. But some persons will tell you that we want to leave our comfort zone. There's this cliche: you have to leave your comfort zone to actually make impact, to get your result, to smash those results. And people leave their comfort zones and go to places where they have to struggle a lot. I come from Africa, Nigeria, precisely, where, they tell you that if you're actually your comfort zone, you practically cannot make a difference. You have to go to where you have to, climb the hurdles, and you have to do a lot of things. So, as a psychology expert, what would you say regarding the cliche of comfort zone, people living their comfort zones? Because it gets them stressed, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's something called the growth zone.
What is that actually?
The growth zone is when you've gone past the comfort zone, and then there's a zone in the middle that I'm not going too much about, but that's the zone of stress, right? So let's call it the stress zone, but there's a more technical word for it. So there's the comfort zone, the stress zone, and then the growth zone. So you need to go through that transition to get to the growth zone. The growth zone is that point where you're actually growing. You're not staying somewhere. You're becoming something else. You're developing. You're evolving.
Okay.
And for us to evolve, we need to go through stress. We need to grow, right? We need to get to the growth zone. And staying in the comfort zone means that you're not going to grow. You're not going to develop. You're not going to evolve. So that actually is not the best philosophy, I think, to have when we think about comfort zone. Unless you're happy with where you are, yeah, for sure, stay in your comfort zone. But a lot of people get frustrated about where they are, but then they don't want to go through that period of stress to get to the growth zone. But stress is inevitable. It depends on how you manage it and how you go through it, right? How you cope with it, how you deal with it. And that is really the determinant between good stress and bad stress, right? When it becomes dysfunctional, it means that you're not coping, you're not managing the stress well. So that's why we talk about stress management. We don't say stress avoidance, right?
Okay.
So
because you can actually not avoid stress, but you can manage it.
You can manage it.
I just, thought of something now while we were talking. We live in a world, especially as immigrants across the world, because there are lots of persons watching this across the world, in the UK, in Canada, and the likes. And we pack shifts, like want to do like how many shifts, so we can pay the bills. And at the end of the day, people, get burnt out. And they say we need to take more shift because we have to pay the bills. We need to take more shift because I have to pay my fees. So walk us through that, journey of how a person, despite having a lot of things to do financially, but can still manage their mental health without breaking down.
Again, I'll go back to sleep. Sleep is very important.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm a big advocate of sleep. Sleep is so important for your brain. And for even reducing those issues and those mental health concerns, get enough sleep, eat a proper diet. Don't be surviving off junk food, because junk food is actually harmful for your brain.
Okay.
And also exercise. We don't think about the good effects of exercise. I'm not talking about pumping your muscles in the gym. I'm talking about just going for a 30-minute walk every day, not sitting all the time. And I would say having good community, good social group, social support really helps you in those moments where you're trying to grow. A lot of people tend to self-isolate when they're going through difficulties, when they're going through... It's normal, right? It is normal because this is the world we live in.
Isolation, is it healthy?
No, it's not healthy. What I mean by it's normal for you to go through those transitions where you have higher stress than normal, because that's the stress zone, like I said. And after that, at the end of that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which is the growth zone.
Okay.
If you're paying your fees, at the end, you're going to get a degree. If you're trying to hustle and do this, at the end, there's something you're looking forward to. So isolation is not healthy at that point, because that's really when you need your network. You need social support. You need the people around you to support you. And a lot of people end up at the end of that tunnel even more stressed because they didn't have support. And that is a big issue that you see in a lot of people: loneliness, depression. And really because they don't have the right people, the right supports in their lives, we're social creatures as humans. We need connection, and that's important as well.
Now, we'll talk about connections, because in today's world, people, according to research, people spend more time on their phones that making connections, and that's like a problem. But we'll look at it more so on the show. But let's look at something. I noticed that, people say that there's a linkage between your mental, health and your physical health. What's
Yeah.
that linkage?
So there is a lot of linkage between that. I talked about exercise already. So there's a link between those endorphins that's released. So these endorphins are hormones. And they're good, you can say they're good feeling hormones that are released
Okay.
every time you exercise. Even 30 minutes of walking releases endorphins,
Okay.
right? And also there's something called the mind-gut connection, which is your digestive system also has an effect on your brain. So eating the proper nutrition is actually, that's why it's very important for your brain, because there is a direct link between your mind and your brain. So physical health is not just exercising, it's also eating right?
Okay.
And also like nutrition for your body in terms of like if you need to take supplements or things like that. It's very important, yeah.
Okay, nice. And I believe you watching this, you're taking notes, and you need to know that you have to eat healthy because there's a connection between your mental health and, of course, your physical health. Let's look at the contagion of stress. I once had a conversation with someone. The person said, Ken, if I'm stressed, most likely the next person close to me most likely will be stressed because most likely I might just transfer the energy. How true is that?
Yes, so it is true that stress in some ways can be quite contagious in a sense where because we're social beings, remember I said that,
All
we
right.
have those, we have a way of relating to each other where through empathy, especially if you're someone that's very empathetic, you might be reflecting what the person is doing. And there's something in the brain called mirror neurons. I'm not going to go into the whole the biology of it, but it's basically those neurons that helps us to mirror each other's behavior. And that's how we get along as humans. We understand, I understand your cues and I try to mirror you and that makes me like you more. So it's actually an unconscious process. We're not conscious of it. It's very automatic. So that's why stress can also be contagious because we're always mirroring each other. We're always trying to get to a point where we understanding, right? So that can also happen in situations of stress, unfortunately, that when somebody's stressed around you, then you're also stressed. And that comes back to like toxic workplaces where everyone around you is stressed. Even if you're not a stressed person, you're going to be stressed because everybody's stressed.
You know?
So yeah, so that's true.
Now, let's take it down to relationship.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when we look at social interaction, relationship is top on the list. Of course, when we look at marriage as well. We live in a world where people have to go to work, right? And as a man, you go to work and you're all tired and stressed with work. You have a target, you have things to do, and you come back home and you're stressed. Do you think that can actually affect your marriage, or how do you think, as a man or as partners, we can go around the work-life balance and, of course, relationships?
So there's something in relationships called, in all human relationships, not just romantic relationships, called co-regulation. So it's when one person can help to regulate the other person's emotional state by them not reacting to their state. So it's important that you have a partner who understands you. A partner who understands that, hey, I have a stressful job and I'm going to come home and I'm going to be stressed. So they can then regulate their own selves to be like not activating those mirror neurons and be like, you're stressed, so I'm stressed, so we're both stressed, so we're going to fight.
Okay.
It's that situation where, okay, I understand my partner is stressed. Let me reason through this. And reasoning is very important. Thinking through it is very important. Am I feeling stressed because they're stressed? Okay, I am. How can I help this person? Let me just calm myself down. I'm going to regulate myself because I'm going to approach them in a state where I'm calm. It's going to calm them down. Again, calming state is also contagious.
Okay.
When you're around someone who's calm and serene, I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but you tend to feel like, oh, you're such a calming presence, right?
Okay.
And that's what we call co-regulation. And when I'm calm, I stay calm. I calm myself down. I check myself and make sure that I'm not reacting to you. You actually then tend to mirror that back to me as well. But it depends as well on the individual and depends on the other person as well, because some people might be more prone to experiencing stress. So then if they see their partner stressed, they might feel even more stressed than their partner because they have maybe their background, their childhood, something happened that cause them to not be able to hold stress very well in their bodies.
Okay, nice. Let's talk about, emotions. It's often said that, the female genders are very emotional beings. I don't know if that's true. Can you allude to that?
So, ladies, don't hate me for it, but yes, it's true.
Okay,
so there is a biological reason for it.
All right.
Because women are the ones who give birth, and they're the ones who bring children into the world, and they're the
Okay.
first contact and connection with the child, right? So they need to have more emotional awareness of how their child's feeling. They need to regulate their child's emotions as well. And through their emotions, they're teaching their children emotions. So there is a biological reason behind that. And yes, it's true because our emotional centers for men and women, they work differently. So we're not, women and men, first of all, are not even wired the same way. That's why we don't understand each other a lot. But yes, we're not even wired the same way on a brain level. We are very wired differently in a lot of ways. So even reasoning and even going through emotions are different. So for women, a woman might come with more emotion, thought, whereas a man might come with thought, emotion. So it's the other way around.
What's the difference?
How I feel first, and then I think through how I feel. Whereas a man is think through my feelings. So my feelings comes next. So I think and then I feel. And for a woman is I feel and then I think. So it's like these two opposite forces having to meet at some point in the middle.
This is actually nice. Okay.
But there's a reason for that because when your child is crying or the baby is crying, you tend to have that empathetic. It's an automatic thing for a lot of women to have that empathetic urge to go and take care of the baby, take care of the child, and be like, what does the child need? So it's that sense of others and prioritizing others, which is why, again, emotions really helps us to understand other people and how people are, because we don't think the same way, but we do have the same kind of emotions, right? So it really helps to understand, and that's really what the biological reason behind it.
When I asked you the question about the emotion gap between a man and a woman, I was driving somewhere. Now I'll tell you where I was headed. The thing is, when men are stressed with work due to their workplace environment, and they come home, either to their wives or to their partners, and like you said, the partner should understand the kind of job that their husband or their man do, and they should be able to reason through the journey. But women love attention, right? And at that point, when they are not getting enough attention because that man is stressed, they're not getting enough attention, they would say, if the man complains, they would say he's not emotionally available or he's not emotionally intelligent. What's your view on that?
Okay, so I have two views. So attention, I wouldn't say attention, I would say connection. Women want connection because we're wired for connection. Again, like I said, connecting with the baby, connecting with the child, connecting with your partner. So women are wired for connection, not attention. So that attention that men see as attention, again, thought, emotion. So you think it's attention.
Oh my goodness.
That part that men see it as attention is actually a bid for connection. It's, can we connect right now? I want to connect with you. You've been gone the whole day. Can we meet and connect in the middle, right?
I see.
So it's that gap and then meeting in the middle, kind of seeking that meeting in the middle. So it's not attention, it's connection. And yeah, I do, to some extent I agree and to some extent I disagree. I think society has made us believe that men do not feel, and I think that's where we went wrong. That a lot of men do have emotions. Again, I said thought, emotions, but emotions is still there. It's not like, men don't have emotions. They don't have emotional intelligence. I think men reason through their emotions, whereas women feel through their emotions. So that's different. So we feel our feelings and then we reason through it, whereas men reason through their emotions. They reason and then feel. Again, so that's why I think there's this disconnect between understanding that, he's not emotionally, and he has to think about where he's. So men, again, go more towards thought than emotion, right? So I think that's why a lot of women believe men are not emotionally intelligent, because they don't come with their emotions first. They come with thought and reason first, and a woman will come with emotion first.
So as a psychologist and a therapist, what would you say to that partner especially to that wife, watching this show right now, and maybe they're having issues with connection, because you said it's not attention, it's connection. So what would you say to that partner right now watching this?
I think it's important to understand that we're different. Again, we're wired differently. Hopefully the show will help them understand that we're wired differently. So just the way you reason through things is not the way he reasons through things. So your bid for connection might not be the way he sees the bid for connection. So maybe ask him, how do you want to connect with me? When I do this, how does that make you feel? And of course, men don't like these questions about feelings, right? So what do you think about this? What do you think about us doing this? I would really like to talk to you right now. What do you think about that? So coming with that think statement, I think appeals more to a man than how I feel. Because women tend to be like, oh, I feel like you're neglecting me. I feel like you're not giving me attention. I feel like, yes, but understand how a man is wired. What do you think about this? What do you think about, I think coming up with the word think even is one of the biggest solutions you can use. So even having that back and forth and having that conversation can help to reach a point of understanding.
And what would you say to that man, husband, young man right now, on the need to connect more to his partner?
I would say don't ignore the bid for connection, because it is a bid for connection, and it's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing, right? It's the person saying, I care about you, I like you, I love you, and I want to connect with you.
Okay.
That's basically what the woman is saying. Maybe in some ways, sometimes women can do it in ways that are not always the best for the man, and they don't translate the same way. But reaching a point of understanding, I think, is very important. Sitting down, having those conversations that, oh, okay, when I say this or when I react this way, I notice that you get upset. Why do you think you get upset? So that's something, having those conversations, really talking really helps, but people don't talk.
When you actually giving us these nuggets about connection and what the man and the woman should do in terms of, bridging that gap, something was very important here, which is communication.
Yeah.
And I want us to understand, people talk, but it seems they actually don't communicate, right?
Yeah.
So what's that difference? Because when you talk to your therapist, I know you must have had lots of conversation with, couples, and of course partners, and they tell you, we talk, but we don't really communicate. What's that difference?
Yeah. So I've not been a couples therapist, but I've been a couples therapist indirectly. Because I work with children, and then I end up working with parents, and then I find out the problem with the child is because the parents are arguing. So then you have to do couples therapy. Okay. So I stumbled into it every single time, which is why I ended up having to then go and do more learning about it, and then having to do it. Okay. So I accidentally stumbled into it. But yeah, so when that communication barrier between men and women is really, like I was saying, in terms of that processing, we don't process things the same way. So I think it's, first of all, understanding that she processes things through her feelings. I process things through my thoughts. So conversations will be either thoughts and feelings. It will not be, because we tend to think that people think the way we do, or people see the world the way we do, but they don't, right? Yeah. And we live in our own world. So we're like, my reality is everybody's reality. It's not. So that's the first thing you need to break that. Your reality is not your partner's reality. You live in the same house. You do the same things. You're around each other. But then you find men saying, how did she see this situation this way? Like, we were just sitting there. Like, how did that happen, right? All right. Because your realities are not the same. You're not seeing life through the same lenses, right? So I really think it's understanding who your partner is and taking the time to get to learn them and understand them. And I think that can be done either through couples therapy or even having someone in your life just mediating it. I mean, I've had parents that they were like, oh, we don't want to do couples therapy. And I'm like, do you have a friend that is one of those friends that's impartial, that's like going to tell you the absolute brutal truth? Like it's neutral. Yeah. Make them sit in front of you and have an argument. And they did that, and their friend was like, you're wrong, and you should have done that, and you're wrong, you should have done that. And then they're like, oh, really? Yeah, you tend to do things this way. You tend to see things this way. So again, going back to like asking for help, right? And sometimes it's important to just have those neutral conversations where you have someone that's neutral in the room and you're having that. Or you don't have those conversations at home. Maybe have a coffee meetup. Be like at 12 on work day, we're gonna meet for coffee here, and we're gonna hash this out. Like, we're gonna
Okay.
talk this out.
All right.
The truth is, we have something. We have a behavior that we do when we think other people are observing us, right? So when you're in a public place, you're not gonna argue as much as you argue at home because you don't think people are witnessing you, and you can better reason through your conversations.
Yeah.
So those little situations, they're not difficult to do. Couples therapy might be expensive. Not everybody can afford it. But going to sit at a cafe and hashing it out and maybe writing out your thoughts. Okay, this is how I feel. This is what I think about this. So then doing that exercise and then sitting together and going through what you wrote down.
Okay, amazing. As we talk about, mental health, stress, and all of that today, I spoke to, a mental health expert, and he said, Ken, in today's generation, the mental health state is bad. What do you think is the cause of this? Why do you think it's so bad in this generation?
Yeah. So if you're talking about generational mental health, I think social media has a big role to play in it. If you're talking about Gen Z, I think social media has a big role to play in it. They grew up in the generation where they had access to a phone at the age of 8 or 9 years old, and there's a lot of things like comparison going on social media. There's bullying going on, and there's a lot of access that people have that we're not normally supposed to have this much access to the world. And it can be good or bad, depending on the person. And I think also because the life has become, I would say life after COVID-19 has become a lot more stressful. People have really tried to integrate within a new way of doing things, and that causes stress as well. And I think also I don't think it's an increase always. I think it's also more awareness. So before, people didn't have words for it. Before they'll be like, that person's just weak, or, just go and pray about it. You'll be fine, right? People didn't have words like mental health, mental illness, depression, stress, sadness. I know my grandmother didn't. Like, she never spoke about it. But I'm sure that they experienced stress, depression, sadness, mental health issues, right? But they didn't have the words for it. So I think it is also a product of people being more aware about mental health and realizing that, this has been happening. This is real.
Now, let's talk about social media. That's like a big subject, and how social media fuels, stress, especially among this generation. What do you think, especially among young people, of course, kids, what do you think parents must do to curtail or manage this condition?
I think really seeing and asking, having conversation with your child about what is their social media use. And also, as parents, you should be regulating that. There are parental guidelines that social media also has for kids. But as a parent, you should know what your child is doing on social media. You should have access to your child's account at a certain age. I think when they get
what age is actually recommended?
I think up to like 13, 14, that should be something that parents should be regulating and should be making sure that they're up to 14, which means even before that, up to that age, right?
Okay.
They should know what their child is doing on social media, and they should be aware that if they need to protect them, they should. But for teenagers, it's a little bit more complicated. But I think having a conversation with your child about it, like, I know you use social media. I know you're on Instagram. I know you're on all these apps, and I want you to be safe. I want you to make sure that, you're not compromising yourself. You're not comparing yourself to other people. And if you feel any way, you feel sad about anything, or you start noticing you're feeling depressed, and if you don't even know that you're feeling depressed, you just feel down, you should come to me, and we giving your child that space to be able to come to you and have those conversations.
Amazing. And let's also look at, social media. And of course, the fact that people are getting so addicted to their phones. Not just kids, not just young adults. We're looking at adults here. They get so addicted to their phones. And according to reports, people are saying that that's also causing stress. What's your reaction to that? Being addicted to phones.
It's true.
People can't actually stay a minute without checking their phones and all of that.
It's true. It's true. And I think it's still an area in psychology that is still being researched, actually, because social media is quite new. Technology is, I was just having a conversation with someone. I was like, do you remember those Nokia phones where you used to play the snake game?
All
That was
right.
like in the 2000s, and we're in 2025, and now we have smartphones and apps. So it's like what 25, 26 or 30 years.
Okay.
Let's say 25 years that even less than that, that social media has been a thing. So it's still being researched. It's still something that it's gone so fast. It has moved so fast that even research is still trying to keep up with what is happening, what is really happening on social media. And it's interesting because I had a lecture about this on Monday with my students about social media use and screen time, and we're still researching. And the research recently up to 2025 is still saying we don't really know how to curtail this. We know it exists, we know it's happening, we know it's affecting people, but we're still researching about what exactly is it that's affecting people, because not everybody is affected in the same way.
Okay, so we know there's no, scientific solution to that right now. But as an expert, what would you say to that person always using their phones? Because let's be realistic. These gadgets, these platforms, they have their own effects, and to some extent, it triggers stress. So to that person watching this, always on their phones every minute, what would you say?
I would say have social media breaks and also have digital breaks, digital detox. So digital detox is when you go one day. If it has, you can do it.
Is that actually possible?
You can do it. Yes,
Oh.
I know you were going to ask that.
All right.
Everybody asked me that. Is it possible?
I'm always on my phone too, by the way.
You can do it. Digital detox. You have one day where you put
Alright.
your phone in a cabinet, you lock it, you put the key somewhere else,
Come
and you
on.
go do something with your day other than being on your phone. Take a walk, go to the park, be with your kids, be with your family, or go with your friends, do something, put your phone away. The world will not end in one day because you didn't look at your phone. So I think it's this urgency to want to be on your phone because it's addictive. That blue light is addictive. That dopamine, there's something called a dopamine rush. You get a boost of like motivation and happiness and joy when you're tapping on your phone and you're scrolling through social media. But you can also get that from enjoying a nice cup of coffee without your phone, or sitting outside and having a nice lunch without your phone. So digital detox, it's a discipline. It's something that is a discipline. It's not something that you can just do. It's something you need to practice. It takes 21 days to make something a habit. So for 21 days, every week, put your phone away, lock it up, and go and do something else except being on your phone. You will find that it gets easier over time. And also, if it helps, having a blocking system, I think some phones have that, where you can block apps at a certain time, so then you don't have access to them. And also limiting your screen time after 7, 8 p.m. Try and not be on your phone as much. Or if you are someone that needs to work that much, try and not be on your phone at least 2 hours before you go to bed.
Okay. Now, let's talk about burnout, because I think you mentioned it in the beginning of the show. How would you know that you're actually burnt out?
No motivation. I think that's the biggest sign, is you'd feel unmotivated. Unmotivated to get out of bed, unmotivated to do work, unmotivated to drive, unmotivated to even talk to your partner or, deal with your kids. You feel this sense of like, I don't want to really do anything. I think that's a biggest sign of burnout. And it's also when you feel more stressed than usual as well. That the usual things that didn't cause you this much stress starts causing you stress, right? And you start reacting. Some people have emotional reactions. You start getting irritated, frustrated, angry faster and more easily. And you will know, I think we all have a kind of like an internal check that says that, why am I reacting this way? I think that's a good sign that, maybe I'm burning out. So if you've been in a period of prolonged stress and you've run yourself too much and you get to a point where you start crashing, I think that's knowing that you just went through that period is also a sign that you might end up burning out at some point. And yeah, I think those are some of the signs of burnout.
Okay. So as we talk about, mental health today, we want to look at anxiety. It's widely spoken about. I think people even commonize it these days. It's so norm. And for the past 5 to 10 years, people just tend to relegate the importance of talking about anxiety.
Yeah.
Because someone you love is actually struggled with anxiety, your kid is struggled with anxiety, but we actually don't know, the real effects and how it affects our everyday function. So walk us through that, the term anxiety. What exactly is anxiety, and how can we know that we are struggling with this and the possible solutions?
Okay, so anxiety is basically a manifestation of fear. It is a sign of, it's a type of emotion that's classified under fear, actually.
Okay.
And we think it's stress, but it's actually fear. So it's fear that you won't achieve what you need to do. It's fear that you can't do that. It's fear that I won't be able to, I won't be accepted in this. So it's these fearful thoughts that end up accumulating. We call it it compounds to a point where everybody has their ceiling of stress, right? When you've burst that ceiling of stress, that's when you get into the realm of anxiety. That's when you start dealing with anxiety now. It's no longer stress, now it's anxiety. So excessive stress is build, and then explodes, and that's when it becomes anxiety. So anxiety is fear and stress at the same time. It's stress gone too much, and then fear is involved now. Fear, you just add a dip of fear in there, and then that's anxiety. So it's not a normal, it's not, I would say, I said normal stress. There is no normal anxiety.
Okay.
So anxiety itself is an emotion that can be quite difficult for people to deal with, because I think it is the sign that you've pushed above that limit, right?
So would you call anxiety a medical condition?
Anxiety is a medical condition. So there is a condition called generalized anxiety disorder, and that's when you have so much excessive anxiety that you are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And there are several other types of anxiety disorders, like phobias. So yeah, anxiety can actually be classified at the end of the day. If it's too much, if it gets to a point where you're dysfunctional, again, dysfunction, that's when it's classified as a mental health
So what do you
condition.
think is the solution for this?
Anxiety, some of the solutions of anxiety is the same as the solutions for dealing with stress as well, because it depends on what is making you anxious. However, a lot of people benefit from therapy when they're going through periods, especially when they're diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. If you have a diagnosis, therapy is probably the best thing you should do at that point. So there's something that in therapy, in CBT, that we call the thought, behavior, feelings wheel kind of thing, right? So it's, what are you thinking? How does that make you feel? And how do you behave? Sometimes it's, what are you thinking? How do you behave? And how does that make you feel, right? So going through that cycle, going through that wheel, and making sure that you're grounding yourself in that. So grounding means that you're bringing yourself back to the present state. Because when somebody's anxious, it's like they've gone out of their bodies and they're no longer in control. It's this lack of feeling in control, the fear of not, basically, of not being enough, the fear of not achieving this, the fear of not getting paid, the fear of not. That's what I like to call anxiety. So when you're in that state, you're not present. You're not really present. It's like you're kind of out and in your body, in a sense. So I would say doing grounding exercises really, really helps. And doing that thought, what am I thinking? How is that making me feel? And how am I behaving? That also is a grounding exercise, because it's making you think through what you're doing. Because when we're anxious, we tend to not be able to even think. We have that, it's just too much. The thoughts are racing, everything, but it's taking back that control and being like, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? And how am I behaving? And one grounding exercise that really helps is noticing place, time, and orientation. Where am I right now? I'm in this podcast studio. Can I name 5 things around me? 5 objects around me. Okay, I see art, I see the vase, I see you, I see the microphone, the chair. Can I feel at least 3 things around me? Let me touch something, like the fabric, the chair, the table. What do I smell? Maybe 2 things that I'm smelling, right? Start smelling something, AC, air. And then what am I seeing? What am I smelling? What am I touching? What am I tasting as well? And what am I hearing? So these are your 5 senses, and engaging those 5 senses helps to ground you back to the present moment. Because again, like I said, there is a fear. And when you're in that state of fear, you're not fully present. You're not fully there. You're a bit, we call it dissociated. You're
Why
not
do you
there.
think people are so scared? Why do you think people are actually scared?
I think we live in a stressful world. I think life can be stressful for a lot of people.
Okay.
And we've not been designed to be living in such a fast-paced environment. And the world has become more fast-paced, right? Our brains are still keeping up with the pace of the environment. So one interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is that anxiety is because your brain doesn't know how to distinguish between a tiger trying to eat you and you being told by your boss that you need to submit that report. Your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain sees it as the boss is the tiger that's going to eat you because your brain is stuck in here. It doesn't know what's going on outside. It tries to interpret whatever is going on. So again, that's why grounding is important because then it tells your brain, I'm actually not in danger. There is no tiger. Relax.
Nobody's
right?
chasing me, actually.
Nobody is chasing me. But your brain has this automatic function of if you're in fear, if you're in that state of anxiety, something, danger, danger, danger. That's all it's saying. And that's why you start to lose it, basically. The thoughts go, the feelings go way too much. You start feeling anxious, fear, stressful. All the negative feelings comes in. And it's like danger, danger, danger. So you have to remind your brain that I'm not in danger. Yes, this is stressful, but I'm not in danger. I shouldn't be afraid. There is nothing causing me fear. If something is actually causing you fear, then that's different, right? Somebody's chasing you, like that's different.
A different subject.
But if you're in a state of anxiety by just sitting in your office, that is not normal. Your brain is saying that you're in danger right now. Why do you feel in danger? Bring yourself back to the present moment. Remind your brain that I am not in danger. A lot of people think that they're not in control of their brains, but they are. You're a sentient being. You are in control. You are actually in control. So I think that's one thing that we need to remember as well. I am in control. How can I take control and bring myself back to a good present state?
Amazing. Now, let's look at I would like to call it, it's sad, but we have to talk about it. Grief. And when we lose someone very special to us, and it gets a lot of people stressed and depressed, and they have a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And how do you think, as a human being, we can, manage grief? Because at the end of the day, when you speak to people that are depressed, stressed, they tell you, "Oh, I lost someone that's close to me. I lost my dad when I was 16, pretty young. So I was able to manage it. I knew how I went through that journey."
Yeah.
So, but people are struggling with it. Okay, so what would you say as regards grief?
Grief. Grief is a normal process. It's normal. I mean, it's not something you can run away from. It's not something you can avoid. And I know it's a very hard, difficult topic for a lot of people. But I think trying to run away from it is actually not going to help you. Grief is it's still gonna be there. At some point, it's gonna chase you when you least expect it. You're sitting in you're getting married, or you're just and you start feeling grief because of something that happened long ago that you pushed down. So it's important to go through that process of grieving, right?
How do you go through that process?
Okay. So when it comes to grieving, it doesn't just get to grieving. People go through different stages before they get to grieve. So people go through stages of anger. They feel sad first, and then they feel angry. Why did this happen? Why did that person have to die? Why did that person have to leave? Right? And then they start to make, they start to reason through it. Oh, maybe, you know what? Everybody has to go at some point. You know what? That person, good riddance, whatever. If it's a relationship, you're grieving. And then it gets to that stage of actually feeling like, oh, I miss this person. I like this person. I love this person and they're gone. How do I deal with that? So that's the stage of grief. And it's getting through it is really having supports around you, having people that who are also grieving. I think grieving in community really helps because it helps you to have resolutions. You can talk through how you're feeling. You can talk to your other family members if you're grieving another family members. I really miss them. And that's okay. Grieving is a stage that can last years or months, by the way. And it's a normal thing to go through. I think normalizing it and accepting it is the first stage. Accept that you're grieving. Normalize that you're grieving. You miss someone you loved, and that's okay. it's a sign that you love them if you're missing them, right? If you don't miss them, then,
Okay.
but it's a sign that you love them. So that grief is also a testament to missing someone that meant a lot to you, and you're keeping that memory alive. So I think the point to which when it becomes dysfunctional is when the person cannot move on. They cannot
So
move
how do
on from the grief.
that's a big question. When you're grieving, how do you move on? That's where people struggle. That's how people become depressed, stressed, become anxious, become unstable.
Yeah.
How do I move on? There's someone watching this show right now and is grieving and asking, when do I move on? How do I do that? So what would you say to that person right now?
I would say first find community, find people to support you and be around you, because you can't do life alone and you can't grieve alone. That's important. And also, secondly, I think it would be good to. There's one exercise that I remember I did myself. A lot of people don't know this, but therapists have to go through therapy.
Oh.
It's something that we have to do to get through our licensing programs. We also have to do the therapy for ourselves. You cannot heal when you're broken. That's one thing.
You can't give what you don't have.
Yeah, you can't give what you don't have.
All right.
So I remember when I did it for a grief exercise, I wrote a letter to the person that I was grieving about. And I was writing a letter and I was telling them how I miss them, how much I love them, and how I would like to have them. But like understanding that, okay, they're gone. I know that, they're in a better place. And and just all the things I wanted to say to them before they passed away. And then I took that letter and I put it on the grave, or I threw it in the sea. People have traditions and rituals that they do to grieve through a process. Every culture has that, actually. And actually there's a reason why it helps people to grieve better when you go through these rituals and traditions where people have certain things that they do to accept that the person moved on and passed on. So writing a letter to that person, telling them how much you love them, you miss them, is such a nice closure exercise, because that's the thing that why people cannot get out of grief. They don't have closure.
Okay.
They don't feel like I had a chance to say goodbye, or I had a chance to say all the things that I wanted to say, right? Or even recording it and sending it to their phone number, sending it to their WhatsApp number, opening a different WhatsApp account and then sending a voice note to that number, talking to them through that. And I think therapy, again, I'm going to bring it back to therapy. Therapy really, really helps, because it can help you process through the grief and the thoughts and the feelings you're having about the grief, because grief can be complicated depending on the relationship you had with the person. So I think those three things really help just
Amazing.
get closure.
And I hope you watching this, you actually took some notes. And I know it's very sad when you lose someone very special to you, but life has to move on, right? You have to move on. You have to pick the pieces of your life and know that there's something waiting for you, out there. So just stand up, wake up, and stop, wallowing in self-pity and all of that. We know, yes, it's life happens. Life will always happen, right?
Yeah.
So as we look to wrap up today's episode, trust me, I've had a fantastic time here, getting to talk to you and getting all these explanation and all these academic insights on the subjects. It's amazing. Now, so what do you think should be the future conversations for mental health?
Okay, so as an African, I would say mental health in Africa needs to move.
Move from where?
Yeah, move from minimal to more. Because I think people really do need mental health. We need better mental health services on the continent, honestly.
Okay.
But I would say that there's different paces at which mental health has moved in different places in the world. And I think we need to reach a point of acceptance that mental health is real. Mental health is important. Physical, mental, spiritual health, financial health, all of that is important, and there needs to be balance. Life is about balance, and mental health is involved. It's very important in that balance as well. Like I said, your brain controls everything that you do, think, and are, right? So this thing up here, you need to take care of it, and your mental health is how you take care of it as well. So I would say, yeah, we need to move towards accepting mental health is a real thing, and then implementing things to help people get through the mental health in the workplace, like we said, in the family, even in like when we think about religious institutions as well, focusing on mental health, having support. When we think about schools, they already have counselors emphasizing more mental health. Everywhere, in every aspect of life, we need better mental health. So I would advocate for increasing mental health services and
Okay.
actually prioritizing the importance of our mental health.
Amazing. So I would like to ask one particular question just before we go regarding mental health. What's the best, mental health advice you've gotten as a professional?
Acceptance is important. I think accepting that, one, I can't change this situation, things are the way they are, but what can I change? What is in my control? Acceptance, and then accepting that I can't control everything, but there are things within my control, so I can control that. I think that has been a blessing in my life. It has helped me to let go of people that, wanted to leave, or it has helped me to really understand some situations that I faced, some difficulties I faced in life. So accepting that things are the way they are. There are things that are not within my control, but what are within my control? What is it that is in my control? What can I do in this situation?
Okay. And what's the worst advice you've actually gotten regarding mental health?
Oh, you'll just get through it. You'll be fine.
And that's wrong.
Yeah, because I think people need spaces to be heard and to be like, oh, I understand that's difficult. I understand that's hard, and I'm grieving with you, or I'm there with you, or I understand how you feel. I think people want understanding. They don't want solutions sometimes,
Okay.
So you'll be fine is not. I think we say that a lot. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. I'll just get through it. I think that's probably one of the worst mental health advice I got.
Amazing. It's been a very fantastic conversation, Seretha.
Yeah.
And I just hope you're watching this. You actually got a lot nuggets. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
And look forward to having more conversation about mental health. And of course, I really appreciate that you're doing something great about the brain, helping people understand more about the brain, learning about it. Thank you. I have to say that. And conclusively, I would like to say that's it on today's episode of Fuse with Ken. Trust you had an amazing time. You were enlightened. However, I would love to say your mental health is everything. Prioritize it. Make the time like your life depends on it, because it does. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button to see more amazing interviews like this. Like, comment, share, as your support is really appreciated. Thank you so much, and bye for now. Gracias.